Have a seat on your porcelain throne. It's time to talk some shit on the Powell movement.
Welcome to the Powell movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and this week I'm going to most likely close my season out by finally picking up my pass at the summit at Snoqualmie. The past 2 years have been the worst seasons of my life. This year because of snow, last year because of sickness and death, and over the past 3 years, I've used skiing as something to make me forget about my shitty life. But skiing or not, this year it's been tough to forget. Really, I just haven't been happy in a while either. While I keep saying I see light at the end of the tunnel and I might for a day or two, I always get sucked back into the vortex of not being happy, and I find myself getting angrier and angrier by the day as well, which I think is part of the whole grief process. But really, at 52 years old, while I love skiing and I love that it makes me forget about all the shit in my life, I'm not frothing to be up in the mountain in shitty conditions anymore. From what I saw this year in the Pacific Northwest, to what I saw in Jackson, to what I saw at Palisades, it's really scary to see what's happening to winter. But what's even scarier is what's going to happen in the future. I mean, I am no scientist, but it doesn't look like there's ever a chance of things getting much better. While we should be in damage control mode, we keep loosening our regulations so the rich can get richer regardless of what it does to our planet. The crazy thing is that while Protect Our Winters beats the drum in the name of climate change in the outdoors industry, outside of Patagonia making noise, does anyone in snow actually do anything that matters? I mean, there are a couple of brands, Elan being one of them, who's totally changed their manufacturing process to be more environmentally responsible with their production process. But for the most part, so many brands pump products out of factories that don't care too much about investing in cleaner and greener manufacturing processes. And no, I haven't been to China or places like that to see the factories, but I have countless friends, old roommates, and coworkers who did spend time there, and I would ask them about kids working in terrible working conditions because I just imagined all the kids standing in inches of water, but my friend said that wasn't the case. But the chemicals and the processes and the way that they handle their waste is a totally different story. That's what the problem is over there. And how did I get on this tangent? I don't know. I'm not a tree hugger. I'm just a realist who, in my lifetime, with my own eyes, I saw a glacier that once had summer camps on it in Whistler totally disappear. Climate change is real, the earth is fucked, and that's just how it is. While there may be things that can be done to mitigate the damage or at least not cause a shitload more, the people in power keep rolling the regulations back and they don't really care about that. But I'm not going to talk about the people in power. In fact, I just remembered where I was going with my tangent. To one of the best days of my life burning jet fuel out in nature. For all this climate talk I just spewed, when I got the email from Ryan at North Cascades Heli that said, if you can be here in 18 hours, we have a seat in the helicopter for you, I was like, holy shit. I was having a beer with a buddy, and I was like, look at this email I just got. He was like, I don't care what you have going on. You have to go. And he was right. This is a privilege, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that I wasn't going to miss out on. So I let Keaton have the house to himself on a Saturday night, and I drove to Mazama, Washington, excited for a day of heli skiing on a knee that I tweaked the week before, but I knew would hold. What I was worried about was being the worst skier in the group. And in my K2 lifetime, I was always the worst skier. I'd either be skiing with the athletes, the sales reps, or the in-house employees, and all of them are kick-ass skiers. The only time I wasn't the worst skier was on sales trip contests with shop guys. I was usually in the middle or the top of the pack on those trips. But what's funny is that when I go skiing with regular people outside of the ski industry, they always think I'm such a great skier, and I always have to tell them that I might seem good to you, but you should see the people that I ski with who are really great skiers, because they will blow your minds. Anyways, on this heli trip, I didn't want to slow the group down, and I did fine. We had a great crew. We had Sid Pattison, who I've had on the podcast as our guide. He's one of the owners of North Cascades Heli, and he's one of the coolest people out there. And if you haven't been helicopter skiing and you have the money to do it, you have to go. It is so much fun. And if you're in the lower 48, you don't have to go to Canada. You don't have to go to Alaska to get great heli skiing. It's right here in Washington. And know that while the rest of the world was freaking out because they had no snow, conditions were all time in the North Cascades. It's the best kept secret in heli skiing, and it was the best day I've had skiing in years. Sure, I wish I had my ski legs under me, but that's my fault. Between my time in North Cascades and my time in Palisades, Tahoe, the name Josh Malczyk came up quite a few times, which is great because Josh is my guest this week. And Josh is not only a good friend of mine, but he's also a dude that I saw go from being the low man on the totem pole in the world of Elan Skis marketing to the top of the food chain for both Line and K2 skis at the Elevate Outdoors Collective. Personally, I've seen Josh go from having a huge impact on youth marketing and cementing Line as the core brand in skiing for a while before becoming the corporate leader that he is today over at K2. All in all, it's kind of funny to me to hear Josh be this K2 company guy when he was the furthest thing from that the last time we talked and when I worked with him. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. But what I do know is that Josh has dedicated his life to sliding on snow, and for me, it was nice to have Josh come to the house and shoot the shit. What's crazy is that while I've been doing this podcast for almost a decade, I bet I've interviewed less than 100 people in person. And while my in-person interviews are always better, my remote interviews are still better than the rest of the shit that's out there. So I don't feel like I'm cheating anyone. But there is a better connection and sound quality in person, and I hope you enjoy it. Also, if you've been listening to the podcast lately and you've been thinking, wow, Mike is really letting her rip in the intros, it's because I really am. I've had a filter on myself for a decade because I haven't wanted to piss people off. And while I'm not trying to piss people off with intros, that's not my purpose. In this country, there are two sides to everything, and I've stayed in the middle for the bulk of the podcast. But at this point, I'm quitting the podcast in September at 500 episodes, and while I'm still going to deliver the best content in skiing throughout these final few months, I don't care anymore about hiding my opinions. And I do expect a little hate mail from those that aren't on the same page as me. The last hate mail I got was when I talked shit on the U.S. hockey team for their reaction to a scumbag's sexist comments after a big win. It came from Brasco1014 on Instagram. He didn't like that I called the U.S. hockey team clowns for how they behaved and reacted to our sexist leader's comment, and he came at me telling me how great what they did was. And Brasco1014, do you think I'm a fucking idiot? These guys won a gold medal. I realize what they did is incredible. You have to be a fucking moron to think I don't get that. I said nothing about the achievement they accomplished. But then you come at me mean-spirited saying, you're just a dude who has a ski podcast and you sell stickers, LOL. I guess he was trying to hurt my feelings, but I'm really proud of the almost 3 million downloads that I've gotten from this podcast. And I took this sticker job because my wife was sick with cancer and lost her job and we needed health insurance. So Brasco1014, like I said in my message back to you, thank you for listening to me. I'm guessing that you've spent some time checking out my podcast, but now that I think about it, please stop listening. You're most likely the piece of shit person that makes this world a worse place, and fuck you. But enough with me being angry. See what I'm talking about? Like I went from being sad of this whole death thing to getting angry. It's like I drive and I get angry. I read fucking Brasco1014, I get angry. But I guess these are the stages of grief and I'm going through them. So that's where I am right now. So enough about me being angry. I need to get to the podcast with Josh. And I can't do that without mentioning my two incredible sponsors who make this podcast happen. These brands have been with me since almost day one, and I love their products, and I love the people behind the products as well. I am talking about Elan Skis and Outdoor Research, so thank you so much for the support. Now it is time to talk with my guest, Josh Malczyk. Last time we spoke, you were the point man at Elan Skis, and you were at the forefront of shaping the youth movement of skiing over there, and you threw a ton of gas on the fire there with the traveling circus. Is that thing still around?
Absolutely.
And so how long have they been doing it now? Like 15 years?
18.
18 years.
We're coming up on 19 and planning a 20-year big hullabaloo. That's what's happening.
So they started at like 22 years old and they're like almost 40 now?
Yeah, I met Will Weston in math class at UVM, actually. He was a year younger than me.
So that's just so wild. So you guys have been in the industry forever, and these guys have been able to avoid real jobs by doing the traveling circus pretty much for 20 years, 18 years. Do you look at that as when you were at Line, is that what you hang your hat on marketing-wise, is like the most influential thing you did?
No, I don't have one thing
What was more important than the traveling circus?
I don't know. What was more important? I don't like to rank things. It's just, we do the same stuff every year. You sell skis, you market athletes, you get new athletes. Athletes grow up, become internationally known, or go and get a real job at some point. I got all that. So I don't know what I would hang my hat on with Elan Skis.
All right, well, I couldn't think of any other big properties that you created, so I just think Traveling Circus was it. But then you bring up athletes, and then you think of the two. What sells more skis, having Tom Wallish on Elan Skis or having the Traveling Circus? If you had to cut one, which sells more skis?
I don't want to be the bad guy there.
I'm just being honest. Like, in the grand scheme of things, what moves more product?
It's two different ways to look at it, where it's like you have Tom, who's internationally known, made a name for himself without Elan Skis for many years. I mean, that's what set his career on fire, was X Games, Dew Tours, all that. And then Will and Andy have been grinding, basically, that sounds weird, but touching lots more people.
It all sounds weird.
Exactly. But, getting into the living rooms or the iPhones of a lot of skiers in, I guess, more approachable locations, whereas Tom's doing things that no one had ever seen before. And that's like your huge inspirations, and you're like, wow, that's wild. And then, Will and Andy do things you've never seen before, and Will Weston's probably one of the best urban rail riders ever. And Andy has a bazillion tricks to his name that no one's ever done before. And then with Andy, he parlayed it into the Telefriend Tour, which is still going. I think this is the 12th or 13th year of that. And that's really, really cool and super grassroots, where he goes to small resorts to ski with kids and eat some pizza and just have a good time. Like, no pressure, no big comps and things like that. So I love that aspect of skiing. I came from Southington, Connecticut, home of Mount Southington. Shout out.
Who sells more skis, Josh? Does the Traveling Circus or Tom Wallace sell more skis?
I would probably say, sorry, Tom, your muffs, but probably TC, with the amount of different people in it, and everyone's riding their own things. So I say as a whole, it would probably be TC because it's its own franchise of line skis, and it's been consistent for 18 years now, which is wild. It's so cool to see, and it was just a reason to get real jobs, which is very admirable in the ski world with Andy and Will, and then parlaying it into a career, which is totally cool.
I'm going to cut you off right there. We could talk about Andy and Will, and you have a long history with them, but we are going to talk about people that move products. Because you've had a bunch of different jobs in your K2 life, because you've had 2 lives there, and we're going to talk about that. But last year, I think you were like the marketing director for North America, which puts you in charge of a ton of different brands and a lot of people reporting to you. Every brand has a lot of athletes. You have a lot of budget that you have to manage. You are an aficionado of athletes. You can hear that in our conversation right now. You're going to tell me about these kids' childhoods when I was just trying to ask a question of who sells more skis. But when you think about it, starting with Vocal, who is their most important athlete? If you had to cut everyone, I have one left in Vocal. Who is it? These should be rapid fire.
There's a lot of them, and I wouldn't cut any of them, but I think they're all great.
No, I'm just saying who's the best, not who would you cut. I'll say everybody else gets cut after the best. Yes.
I'll say my favorite is Finn Billois from New Zealand. His style and everything is just so cool, and what got me onto him was he made this cool edit that he actually just re-put on the internet of he chopped the tails off of some of his Vocal skis and put some graphics on there, and they're these fish-looking skis, and just had this banger edit down in New Zealand like years and years ago, and that's what put him on the map for me, and I think a lot of other people, and he's just been crushing it. And I actually found myself at CMH heli skiing with my sister and put 2 and 2 together, and the guide was actually his father, and I went full fanboy, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm like one of your son's biggest fans. But I like him. I'm sure I'm missing so many other.
No, you got to pick one there, and that's all you got to do, and you got your Finn right there. How about K2? Who's your favorite K2 guy? Because you're not going to say the most important, it sounds like. Who's your favorite K2 athlete?
Favorite? Oh, man. Ski of this generation?
Yeah. What you got going on right now?
Manon Loshi,
okay.
I think. Yeah. I had the opportunity to have dinner with her in Annecy, France a few weeks ago, and I had been watching her skiing, had never met her before, and she's from La Coussa, home of Candy Tovax.
Oh, you told me. You were like, you got to get this girl on your podcast when you were over there. We were like texting or something.
Absolutely. Yeah. And she's so cool. And not meeting her before, and in France, when I was skiing in La Coussa and Claim, I went to the Balm for the first time, which is like the coolest. That's where Candy skis and everybody. So 14-year-old Josh was stoked to see that whole area, and every single piece of that piste has been hit in some crazy way by Candide. And then I actually saw him, which is crazy. 14-year-old Josh and 40-year-old Josh, very excited.
Do you go up to him and introduce yourself?
Absolutely not.
Just let your hero be?
Don't want to meet the hero. He's a very nice guy. I think I met him one time a long time ago, and we gave him some full tilt boots, and I got a magazine signed by him, and that was kind of it. And I was just like, okay, yeah, we'll keep him there. But that was so cool. On a Saturday, seeing him following his friend on a snowboard, like with a GoPro and just doing his thing, and then being in that area was wild. So that was a momentous moment in my ski fan world.
All right, so I'm going to cut you off there because I'm going to have to cut you off a lot, Josh.
Oh.
Okay, let's go to line. Who's your favorite line? There's so many brands, I have to ask you who their favorite athlete is, or the one that you wouldn't cut, but you're going to say your favorite. Who is your favorite line one right now?
I don't know. We're going to talk about athletes so much.
I didn't either, but you kind of led that way. Now I'm just going to go through the list.
Dylan Siggers.
All right, there we go, Dylan. You're safe. DeBello,
Marcus Eder.
Okay.
Who's his first sponsor. I've never met him before either, and seems like a great chap, and he seems like one of the first Freeride World Tour guys in that world to be a legit fucking park skier. He can do anything, and he's the Italian stallion, and I can't wait to see what he does at natural selection and all that. And I'm first and foremost, this is my career and everything, but I am a fan of skiing and the people and the products and everything that shapes it.
He said he was going to do my podcast, and we've been messaging, and every time I message him, he's like, I've got a lot going on right now. Will you reach back out in 2 months? So he keeps saying that. I keep reaching back out. He keeps thanking me, but he reached out to me first.
Nice.
Saying, I like your podcast. And not reach out to me first. I probably reached out to him years ago, but he came out to me like in the past year. But either way, who's your favorite marker athlete?
Marker.
Yeah, because that was a brand you were in charge of, right?
I wasn't.
They reported to you. You were the North America. Well, your LinkedIn's lying then.
Well, it's North America, and I was not in charge.
Well, you're North American.
There was brand.
I'm asking
folks
your favorite North American marker athlete. You're the boss of the
favorite
North
American marker athlete.
Well, now I'm being more specific.
Oh boy, because I was gonna say
you can say whoever.
Frederica Bergoni or the ski racers that were on different brands, and they chose marker bindings over their brands bindings because they were a better product. And it was kind of the secret podiums that we had going on last year during the World Cup, and it was so cool to see these top performing athletes on different brands, like with their marker Comp 30s.
And the marker goggles are phenomenal too. Let's go to your next brand. How about K2 Snowboards? Because they reported to you too, right?
No, they didn't.
I mean, LinkedIn is like leading me the wrong way.
No. KT Snowboarding, I mean, the most impressive over his career is Sage Kostenberg because of just, winning Olympics, winning X Games, transitioning to the backcountry and just never skipping a beat there. And Leanne Pelosi's, mostly because we've just had a fun friendship over so many years that the K2 house down on Mount Hood brought us together.
Dude, she's such an awesome person.
She'd come down with Jeff, and RIP Jeff. That it's awful. I feel so bad for that whole situation in Khyber. But yeah, Leanne has been there forever and always solid and always has a good smile on her face.
Dude, she was on K2 when you were in like 8th grade.
Yeah, I know. Like I was a young 22-year-old going down to Mount Hood, and we have a free place to stay, so I'd go down there and go ski and everything, but they'd be down there in their Bigfoot camper, and having those personal connections, you become a fan forever of what they are because you know what they're about.
All right, well, I'm going to get away from athletes. I'm going to talk about the last time we were talking. You were at K2, and you were there for a little bit longer, and then it was time to go, and there was new leadership at K2 when you got there. Like, I had left K2 in 2015. There was a big layoff there. There was a lot of uncertainty. Then things started to come back together. They hired John Colonna, who became the CEO, and at first, when that guy was the CEO, every sales rep, and every person involved in that brand was ready to run through a wall for that guy. Like, would that be fair to say?
He's a great guy and had some great visions and came from some great other companies and brought a fresh perspective into our space. And yeah, I didn't get to work with him for that long because, the last time I was here on the pod, I think I knew I was quitting. I just couldn't tell anybody yet because of the changes. Nothing was like inked. Yeah, it was. With that organization, there has been a lot of changes in its entire history. I mean, I think K2 was owned by Anthony Pool Supplies at one point or another, Cummings Engines or something like that. So there's a wild history of the company.
For sure, but I think you can look at the company as it had one brand vision, and you can look around the room of this house because it's kind of
I love
like
the memorabilia.
So the brand from 1962 to 2015 had a little bit of Americana injected into every little thing, even if it was fake because stuff's made in China and whatever. It was still injected in there. We were proud of it, and there was a history there. Wayne Wong and the triaxle braider and all the shit you see in this room was always going to be there. But when the new regime came in, it was kind of like we are a new K2. And we were like more snowboard focused and ski focused, and we're going to build that side of the brand. Would that be fair to say? Because I was on the outside and watched the ski brand die for a few years, and it felt like they were putting a lot more into the snowboard side than ski. But you tell me, because you're there.
I was on the outside also. I was still doing line skis and focusing on that completely. And a lot of friends that work for the K2 brand and everything, and it did go a little bit more snowboard-esque. There was a lot of snowboarders that were overseeing everything, a lot of smart snowboarders. And there was some years of not understanding the direction a little bit, and it's tough to understand direction when you're a company up here in the Northwest and it's all mysterious, and if it's hard to bring everyone along the entire time.
Well, you were safe because you were on the Cool Kids program of line that was selling, right? Because it was kind of like...
Tiny. Yeah.
But your opinion was valued and everything because Line and Ride were like cool. And those guys were, I feel like, more of the golden children there almost because they were in that cool pocket, and K2 Snowboard for that matter.
Yeah.
I mean, K2 Skate was not only decimated, but they killed product line categories.
I know.
Just because they weren't cool, even though they sold units.
You know, as my previous role when I came back this last time, I did work with K2 Skate a lot more, and I've been texting you about it all the time, and I got into that world, and it's such a breath of fresh air, you know, being the older age I am. I do love skiing, but I do love marketing in general and customers, and it's so cool to see a product that we make that doesn't require snow and where it reaches to, and seeing a bunch of kids in Africa that have a bunch of K2 skis, and they have their whole crew, like the skate nights in Berlin to Marrakesh to LA. It's such an interesting sport that I'm not very into it. I've been roller skating a few times down at El Centro, but
a lot of people do it globally, and it's funny that you exited in some respects, but whatever. You know, when you did this podcast and you were getting ready to leave K2, but you couldn't say anything here, K2 is like in the right direction. Everybody's stoked. And like, I will say for 5-6 years, you guys were killing it seemed like. And the Mindbender stuff was going out, given that all started before he got there. But it was like,
no, that was Mindbender was when John was there. I remember there was a big talk about the names and everything.
But I thought the name was a placeholder name from like before he even got there. Because I feel like that name really, I mean, skis ski well and not, but that name was just the perfect timing for all of it.
It was cool, brand. And I think it was a development name. You know, every development skunkworks thing you have going on, you name it something. And it kind of was that internal name, and then it stuck. And then Boots was coming along a lot more. And so we put it onto the Boots and the skis to merch those things well. And a lot of Mindbenders out there.
So anyway, the brand's in a great direction. You're with Line, you're protected. But when does the whole conversation of season equipment start? Because you're a founder of that, right?
I'm a founding member. I didn't have any ownership or anything.
No ownership stake. But were you like in the initial conversations of people talking about, hey, we're going to start a ski brand? Or when do you get in the conversation?
No, I was like brought in by Eric Pollard because, I mean, I think I can trace it back to probably a skin track up in Miyako, Japan, with Eric and Bryce Phillips from Evo of the idea of making a brand, a ski and snowboard brand. And they had been talking for a long time, a lot of spreadsheets and things like that. Ben Wallace was involved, and another close friend of mine, Andy Hitchon, was also involved. He worked for Evo at the time. And yeah, I was offered to jump ship and do that. At the time, I had done a lot at Line. I feel like I had kind of hit a ceiling there. There was some changes going on, and I was like, okay, I don't have kids or a wife or, you know, nothing to lose here. Let's do something crazy. And I went on the information that I had in front of me of developing something from scratch with people that I respect and businesses that are very respected.
I mean, it was working with Eric Pollard, who you're not only like best friends with, but you also have like a huge man crush on, and you were a big fan of when you were a child.
Actually, I wasn't a big fan. I think that was in the last podcast. I wasn't a big fan because I'm a little park skier from the East Coast, and so I didn't really understand powder skiing in general. And so I was more of a Vincent Dorian and Dave Crichton fan. And then, you know, our friendship blossomed of working at Line Skis for so long, and he's down in Mount Hood. And we had a good working relationship too. You know, he's the artist, the creator, the engine, the shaper of skis, and he brought in the ideas that you can't get inside the walls of an office, which is how most good products become here. I mean, look at Shane McConkey. You know, he can come into the office and motivate everybody from customer service to engineers to CEOs and come in with a crazy idea like the pontoon or something like that. And with K2, that was we're able to make those things reality. I mean, I might have talked about this in the last one, but like he had on a piece of paper the schlong, and the schlong was a ski. It skied short but was long. And this was around like, when did he pass? It was
2008, I believe.
And so it must have been like a few years earlier, and that was his next iteration. That wasn't the pontoon. It was a more commercial, skinnier ski. And it fell by the wayside or something like that. But what dominated the industry at that time was the Rosnell S7, which skied short and was long. And we're like, whoa, probably should have listened to Shane at that time. Those are those ideas you only get from riders and people who are like very deep into tweaking their equipment.
And Austin's like that too on the snowboard side.
Yeah, totally.
So you have two super creative guys, and they're coming in, and the way it looked and felt, it was like these two guys are launching this brand. You're involved, but it doesn't feel like you're really involved. You're the guy behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes.
And then Evo's going to sell it. When it breaks down, does Evo own 50% and those two guys get 25% apiece?
Oh, it was a partnership with Evo and the Nidecker group, the Nidecker family in Switzerland also. And that was our manufacturing connection because they make boards at SWS in Dubai. And then we made skis at the Emmer Sports Factory in Austria. So they were another business partner, which was great to work with them. So that's kind of how it started, was this trifecta of great retail customer service and, backing of Evo with great manufacturing with Nidecker, and then great minds when it comes to creating product.
It's time for my first sponsor break, and I'm going to start with longtime sponsor Elan Skis. And if you haven't skied on an award-winning ripstick yet, you're missing out on something that ski brands have long said wasn't an option. A lightweight ski that powers through anything and truly rips. It's game-changing. And Elan, while they've been around for 80 years, have been changing the game of modern skiing by doing things like adding side cut to straight skis with the Elan SCX, which changed the whole industry. They're building skis by skiers in a place with ski culture in the Slovenian Alps. And most importantly, they're supporting local shops. When the competition goes and starts selling direct, Elan sticks by their retailers who have been by them since the beginning. Elan is just built differently, and they innovate with a purpose. And that's to make your on-snow experience better, easier, and more fun. It's this approach that brought you the Ripstick and all of their award-winning skis. And when you're in the market for a new pair, visit an Elan retailer, demo a pair of their skis, and you'll know why Elan has built a cult following here in the States. To find out more about all the skis or to find an Elan dealer, head on over to elanskis.com. Now it's time to jump back into the podcast. So they hire one of the K2 engineers, who's one of the great engineers at K2.
He worked at Armada.
And he worked at Armada as well. So he has experience at both places. And then he went to Evo. And then they took you from Line. And then they have Eric and they have Austin. And Nidecker's got the back end of building all the stuff and sourcing it. Evo's got the sales distribution channel. So you don't really have to worry about anything but the marketing. And then the marketing all goes to you, right? Like, because nobody else is really messing with it. You might get graphics and stuff from Eric, but you are focused on all the work.
No, it was a startup. So it was like shaping what we had. We knew we had gold in how we were thinking, how we wanted to do things. We had carte blanche of making a brand that we wanted to back, and what came of that was the complete antithesis of any other brand in the industry, where we had gender inclusive products, a very simple line of 3 skis and boards at first, and then it went to like 5, but like name the same thing, all black, they didn't change. The baseline story was like, a ski shouldn't go bad because the graphic changes the next year and be discounted and flushed out of the industry. It was a totally different.
It was, we don't want you to buy skis, buy from us. Look what's going to happen in 2040. We're going to make a big change in everything. And it really wasn't you not wanting people to buy skis. You just wanted people to buy your skis, and then they didn't have to buy them every year.
Well, then that was the great partnership with Evo also, because they have these world-class service centers and tuning centers. So like when you bought the skis, you had lifetime service of the skis. A lot of people, it kind of comes down to, oh, my skis suck or whatever. They're just not waxing them or like filing them, or yeah, you can hit a rock and blow out an edge and whatever, and the ski might be done. But more often than not, a good wax on a ski, it makes you feel like a hero, so you can come back every year and get a little tune-up every time. And so leaning on that longevity and more of a durable good as opposed to a product that is trend-based or things like that was our mission and the filters that we put any products we made through the pipeline. It was very interesting. But let me say, this was a full startup.
But all you needed was the product, because you had the guaranteed retail channel to sell it through.
Yeah.
And then you had the carrot on top of, hey, we've got a full service plan, like we're your Ford dealership, and we're going to do all of your service for you.
Yeah, and what you don't have, which is very clear to me, is time. And let's tell the listeners here of when this was. I left my role in January 2020. So think of what was going on in January 20. No one knew what was going on yet, but I was like, oh, the world's my oyster. Let's go nuts. And by the way, what's going on in Wuhan, China?
But that worked out to be a perfect storm for you, because while there was uncertainty in the beginning, everyone became a genius at the end of the day because people couldn't keep stuff in stores.
Yeah, if you had developed it and made the product and had the distribution at the time. We were starting, the brand was launched October 20th, 2020.
Oh, you're just a logo.
I mean, when I jumped, we didn't have a name yet. We had what we wanted to accomplish and do, and with that comes thousands of small little choices and decisions and things like that, learning how to work with each other. You know, people are remote and working with new manufacturers and systems and things like that. So, yeah, a lot of people say that. It's like, oh, you must have just sold them all out right away. I'm like, well, no one knew we existed yet.
But that was easy to do. Like for a brand like Vishnu or any of these small brands to get people to know that they exist, they really, really have to try. For you, all you have to do is have it on your wall and have your employees talk about it. And you're very easily say, hey, we're going to give you $10 if you sell the ski. Not that you had to spiff them out or anything like that, but when you own the distribution, it's not a full-on monopoly. But I mean, come on now, it's as close to it as
yeah,
skiing.
there's a lot of challenges of getting the skis on the wall because it was all new stuff and new manufacturers. So it was a lot of wins and a lot of like milestones of being like, I mean, I remember standing with everybody when the thing went live and somebody emailed me, we got our first order. It was like we got one. It was just like big high fives and tequila shots. And those are those moments I'll cherish for life. It's starting something from absolute nothing with the right partners and then seeing how it goes and seeing how a market reacts. And it was so cool to see the industry kind of rally behind that and be like, you know, this is a good idea and I'm really down with this look. And Eric has a lot to do with it. Has everything to do with it, with his aesthetic. And we used so many of his pictures and so much of those things. And I mean,
Did Eric get more than Austin in terms of equity in the company?
Oh, I have no idea. You'd have to ask Eric. But yeah, I mean, that first year when we jumped and then the world shut down, it's down a Hood River and it was like, okay, I guess we're just sharing germs here. I mean, we camped out on Mount Hood like many times in order to get assets and everything for this launch. Some of the pictures were Elan Skis photoshopped out black bases because we didn't have certain prototypes and things like that. I mean, there was so much scrappiness going on. And that's the things that I kind of love of like, okay, we got to get to here. How do we do it? You know, we can't travel. We can't do this thing or, you know, something stuck in the Strait of Hormuz or something like that. It was cool just making it happen and being with a good group of people.
When you think about being with a good group of people on your team, because you're part of that seasoned team, but you're also part of Evo at that point, right? Are you working at Evo?
Since I live about 4 or 5 blocks away from the Evo headquarters, and they had just opened this beautiful new office, I was like, this is great. And, you know, went down there, got to know all the people that, like, I wouldn't interface with all the time, but, like, you know, people in the office, and it's so cool. And that was about 2 or 3 weeks until the world shut down.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So it was a tease. And, you know, I pass it all the time when I'm in Fremont. And I remember those times fondly of some of the friends I've made ever since.
Because Evo was all about culture and Evo dinners and doing Evo stuff together. And you missed all of that because of the pandemic?
Well, I mean, everyone missed everything for like 2 years pretty much. So that was a little unfortunate. It's things that are not in our control. So as us humans, we adapt. And yeah, I'm all about Evo. It started in my neighborhood in a garage, you know, and some of those guys are still, I mean, Bryce, obviously, and then Nathan Decker and a lot of the crew there has organically grown such a, I hate to just say it's a retailer. It's a community cultural center in lots of different places in the United States and now expanding to Japan with the Rhythm stores and creating some great products themselves. So it's always been such a pleasure to work with them, for sure.
Awesome. I'm a big fan of Evo as well. And let's see where I'm going to go in the podcast. With your whole K2 and line career, you've traveled a shit ton. Were you getting to travel with season or were you kind of chained to a desk? Because when you're launching a brand, I'm sure there was a lot more work than you were used to in the corporate world. Even though you're busy there, you can always leave and come back the next day. But when this is your baby, you're 24/7, I would think.
Yeah, it was 24/7 for sure. I mean, as far as work travel, no, because we didn't have any money and it was also the world was shut down. So there was really none of that. The one big trip I went on with Austin and Andy and myself was to put faces to the names on emails and everything in Europe. And we started, I think, in Austria. I picked up Andy in Munich. We went down to the Comperdel ski pole place. We went to the Amber Sports Factory, met everyone there. Went to Blue Tomato, which was a distribution partner of ours at that time. And then Andy and Austin ended up getting COVID on that trip, which was hilarious. And I had it probably 4 weeks earlier, so I was pretty inoculated. And then going over to the Nidecker guys in Switzerland, and then finishing the trip by going to Dubai to the snowboard factory, which was really, really, I mean, standing in front of SWS in Dubai talking about snowboards, that was probably one of the wildest places that my career has ever brought me.
Did you go skiing in Dubai?
We did. Me and Austin walked through the Dubai Mall there, past Prada stores and things like that, and then you end up at Ski Dubai. And you can rent everything. There was like 3 sizes of boots, and so like nothing really fit, but you got your like little socks and your outerwear and everything like that, and we went in there and ripped the snow dome there for a few hours. There's penguins there, but we didn't see the penguins. You had to pay extra to go see the penguins, but then there was like Zorbs, and it was an interesting experience, that's for sure. But there was like a crew of like park skiers and snowboarders and everyone there. That's where they go.
It was like their skate park?
Yeah, and like, you know, we all love skiing and snowboarding, and it's one of those things that you're hooked on it. And if you grew up in the Middle East, to have that opportunity is so cool. I saw a kid with some Tom Wallish skis on and everything, and I'm like, yo, can we take a picture together? Because I'm about to text it to Tom. And, you know, it made his day, and it just shows that it touches everywhere as long as there's refrigeration and a slope you can go to.
They got enough money there to make that stuff happen. So. Where else has skiing taken you? You say Dubai is like one of the most fantastic places that skiing's ever taken you. Have you been to China and seen a factory there?
I have been to China. I've been in China a few times.
What's a ski factory like in China compared to Dubai?
I mean, there's so many different ways to make a sandwich. There was some manufacturing differences in Dubai. In China, I mean, we own the full factory, and it was built from the ground up as a ski factory.
Oh, Weihai.
Yeah, Weihai. Great factory and great people that work there and can produce some really great stuff. Prototyping is awesome there. We can do a lot of different things. And then we have other factories around the world, too, in Italy and Germany, all the places.
When you think about your time at Season, I think that winds down in 2023. What happened there? Because that's the one thing, and when I'm putting this all together, I know Season ended, but I don't really know how it ended. So how did Season end? Because
it didn't end. It didn't end. It's still a full brand.
No. How did your time with Season
my time
end? We're not telling Season's story. I don't care if they're still in business. We're talking about Josh Malczyk.
Oh, okay.
And so the whole in that story is like you were there, you're working with great friends, everything seems to be going well. What happened?
Well, from the outside, it's like talking to anybody in their personal lives or whatever. There's always more things going on.
For sure.
And there's so many different nuances to what's going on. One, timing of COVID and partners, economies growing, getting smaller, like just the ground shifting beneath us a whole bunch. And what a lot of people don't realize is like an overnight success brand. When you see those things, it's average 10 years old. You know, it's not 2 years. You can launch maybe a tech company or something like that, like instantaneously, and get a bunch of money, but you're still not making any revenue. And so that time frame, it was just kind of a victim of that. And we were running out of our seed money and things like that, and things were shifting. And yeah, there was coming to Jesus, coming to a reality situation of the people we had working there, and it was time for me to take off. And like I said, I wasn't an owner or anything like that. I was more or less a hired gun. And so we parted ways super amicably. I'm still good friends with everybody there.
Did you get laid off?
You don't get laid off when you're a contractor. You just got to get your contract done.
Oh, so you never had insurance or anything like that?
No, I was an independent contractor. That's for sure.
So they never gave you security. That's weird too.
I mean, that's a big thing when it comes to independent contractors. That is one of those things you always need to consider, and you know that just like everybody else who's done it before.
But I mean, I have a podcast, and that's why I'm an independent contractor. You were creating a brand for a brand that was going to sell it, and it just seemed like you would be an employee of that brand. It's interesting that you weren't.
You know, every business is set up differently. And we all make our own choices of what we want to commit to, and that's where I was at. I have no ill will towards anybody or anything.
Oh, I'm not saying you do, but I mean, if the numbers didn't math out and they had to let someone go, there's nothing wrong with being laid off. But you didn't one day say, hey, you know what? We don't have budget for me. I'm just going to go home today. And so how's the end happen?
Yeah, that's kind of it. There's a wind down and a handing off of things and a reshaping of the business. And there's been more reshapings of the business, and still it's looking great. Austin and Eric, I think, are skiing all this powder up in Mount Baker right now, taking pictures. I'm kind of jealous.
Yeah, and their pictures aren't all black and white anymore because they've added different graphics.
Yeah, and there was always a plan to add different colors, but like the spirit of the brand is still alive, of timeless graphics that don't change year over year, not like limited edition things and stuff like that. So yeah, it's looking good. I went down to Eric's house for Christmas this year and got some sneak peeks of things. I'm like, damn, you're still doing great, and I love it.
So your time there ends. You've recently had bought a house, and you've got a car, and you've got all these adult bills that you have to pay. Are you stressing at all? Do you have a big cushion? Or what was going on in your mindset? Are you like, I've got a year to figure stuff out? Or where were you? Because I'm sure that's a stressful time when you decide to retire from the brand that you're with and go from there.
Major stress for sure. But when you come from a family of 4 kids and public school teachers, money is always tight in a certain way. So you always kind of assume everything can kind of go away. So you want to have a little safety net there. And when I moved on, I thought I would kind of cruise for a little bit, do my thing, and then Amazon World or something here and go skiing for fun instead of just talking about it. And that was about an 8 or 9 month period. And a role came up at Elevate Outdoor Collective, which used to be called K2 Sports, and decided to drop back in because my head was straight and I knew the business really well, or I knew the snow sports business really well. And I went from being just a young coordinator who didn't know anything about actual marketing to being a marketing professional. And so I was able to come back in stride and do a lot there.
I've seen this countless times. It's like, dude works at K2, dude leaves K2, dude comes back to K2, and dude crushes it because you get experience elsewhere, come back. And was it like surprising how much better you could do when you came back?
Yeah, and it's a normal story of anywhere is to get an outside perspective and to see things from a little bit farther away instead of being right in it the entire time and work with different people and see what's going on. It does prepare you for lots of things. I'm not a proponent of everyone just quitting their jobs and going to something else, coming back or doing whatever, but it's a free country. You can do whatever you want. So it definitely helped a lot. I learned more in those years of season than I'd ever had in a different way in current marketing strategies, techniques, systems, and processes.
Line was undergrad, and then you got your graduate degree at season.
Yeah, I think so. And that rings true. I remember my first interview at K2 Sports when I was 22 years old, and it was the president of the company I interviewed with, which was pretty wild, Robert Markovich, and he did say, you're going to go to college here. And you're gonna understand it. And I had no idea what was going on in general. I barely knew where Seattle was, and took the jump and did that. And I definitely learned a lot in those 12 or so years of being in that world, and then learned a whole lot of other things when I left. And now I'm still learning. I mean, if you think you know everything all the time, then you're not doing it right. So I'm very gratified in the arc of my career, I guess you would say.
When you left, the vibe, like I said, people were stoked. It was like, we are back, because one regime had left and K2 was dipping. And then, I call it regime because it's all about leadership in these places, Josh. Mm-hmm. Everywhere you work, it's your leader dictates how you're going to do. And I've seen it time and time again. And whenever there's a bad leader, the end result is people aren't fired up, people are bummed. But at one point when you left, people were fired up. All the reps were telling me how great things were, because I still talk to all those guys. I always have. And then when you come back, it's a different company. A lot of things has changed. What were the vibes when you came back?
I mean, there was a lot of change in those years I left.
Yeah.
I mean, the company had a different name. I came back to the office and they go, oh, by the way, we're moving across the water to Bellevue in 6 months. I was like, whoa, that's wild.
Did you know that before you said yes?
I don't think so, but I was pretty stoked because our new office is world class and there's free parking and it's not in downtown Seattle. And, you go to downtown Seattle, there's a lot going on there.
I'd say this is an upgrade from downtown Seattle. Given it's not Seattle, you're still disconnected from the hub of manufacturing, but you're not downtown Seattle. You're not going to get beat up by a homeless person.
Yeah, and downtown Seattle's cool. I mean, it was a unique place to work because you can go to lunch at Pike Place Market.
But you were in the hub of where that we call them unhoused. I make the mistake a couple weeks in a row of saying homeless, but there's a lot of unhoused right at the base of where K2 was, right?
Yeah, it was Westlake.
Epicenter.
I wouldn't call it epicenter.
One of them.
Downtown in any major city, there's going to be a lot of transient action, a lot of...
At that mall in that little corner and where the chess thing was, weren't there a lot of people there?
Yeah.
Guys? What was the craziest thing you saw from a not well person downtown? Because you had to have seen a lot of shit.
I mean, I definitely called 911 a few times to say, I think there's a dead person here. And then the person at the end of the line says, are you sure? And I'm like, I think so. And then as I'm on the phone, they, pop up and I'm like, oh, you're right. And they're like, yeah, that can happen sometimes. And so that was a little bit unsettling. But hopefully the mental health crises and drug crises and everything, they're getting the right support.
No, we're spending it all on bombs, but that's all right.
America.
It's time for my second round of sponsors, and I'm going to start out with Outdoor Research. I could spend a lot of this ad telling you all the tech and why Outdoor Research is better, But know that in the 1980s and the early 90s, outdoor research built a reputation on functional quality outdoor gear that pushed the limits of innovative possibilities. And those who were function first were all about OR gear because it was and it still is built better, and outdoor research is still pushing those limits of innovation. This year, the outerwear focuses on 3 new collections: the Cloud Chaser for backcountry and the Powderverse and Hemisphere collections for freeride, as well as some staples in the line like the Snow Crew collection. These outerwear systems are styled for and by athletes like Mark Adma, Troy Podnosak, Zoe Aitken, snowboarder Neil Provo, and others, and that's why this outerwear collection not only looks so good, but each piece is more functional than ever, and they're all you're going to need in any conditions. To find out more about the new collection, head on over to outdoorresearch.com. Now it's time to jump back into the podcast. Thinking of the vibe, so you get back, what was the internal vibe at K2? I mean, are people fired up at this point? Are people trying to figure it out? Are they shell-shocked? Are they scared? Like, what's going on? Because I've been there for all of those different things.
Yeah.
At some points, the vibe is, I'm scared for my job on a Friday and I don't want to look over my shoulder. On some days, it's like, yes, everything's so awesome. We're traveling the world and killing it. Then there's like another day where you're like, man, I know I'm okay, but there's other people that are going to go. And you just never know all the time. So
walked in.
What did you come back to?
I think I came back to a kind of understandable, the way the company was structured. It was
like your coworkers, man. Were they psyched or were they scared?
Yeah, they were pretty psyched. I mean, but obviously a bit shell-shocked in the amount of changes, especially in the Marco Del Bello vocal world. And just a lot of ground shifting underneath us. And me coming back into that, I'm excited that we have current technology, like Microsoft Teams. I'm like, oh my God, I could talk to anybody here now. And, COVID basically supercharged all that stuff to make it so you could work from wherever in a way more efficient way. And when I left, there was, some systems that were just, archaic. And the digital transformation of the company was really impressive of some of the people that were there. Yeah, I was stoked. And some people would be like, oh yeah, there's new processes and things like that. I'm like, y'all have no idea how hard it was. I mean, when you were there, people would fax in their orders. The industry that we work in, there's a lot of old school, small, amazing specialty retailers, but like technology and the snow sports world didn't really mesh. And so seeing us becoming more current was really, really motivating for me.
Well, you had to get everyone on the same page. So I guess like the timeline is you get there, then almost like 6 months later, I see you at a TGR premiere, and that was like the day that John was let go and you got new leadership coming into the company. So he's gone, and it seemed like for the next 6-8 months, maybe next 2 years almost, or year and a half, it was everybody learning new systems. It was like, hey, we got Marker on these systems. I've got these people on these systems. We're all going to upgrade technology. Everybody get on the same system just so we can get on the same playing field. And then we can figure out our brand. And I feel like now you guys are able to actually do the blocking and tackling and start to be a brand again. I don't know. It seemed like you were a shell of yourself when you got there. And there's new leadership, and it seems like you're kind of finally in the right direction. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and absolutely no disses to John. He was the one that pushed for a lot of these changes, and they work really well in the long term, for sure. And with leadership change, Josie Larock came in, and she's amazing, and she's had an illustrious career at Burton, in Europe, in America, and everywhere.
But she's like a schooled, educated business professional, right?
She's an operator. So is John, but in a different way.
But he's more like shop guy, knows the whole industry. He didn't like go to like Kellogg School of Management or anything like that.
I'm not sure.
I am sure, because I did all the research on doing a podcast with him, and he didn't do one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I love John. He's a great guy, and the people he brought a lot of good new ideas. And my boss for only a small amount of time, which I wish we had more time to work together, John Roy. He was a CMO at the time. Yeah, there was just fresh perspective in where it was, with just a lot of moving parts that were needed their hair combed a bit. And we're combing our hair, and people say, what's the crazy thing you're going to do? I'm like, the crowd goes mild. We're getting back to basics. We lost a lot of connection with retailers, who is the lifeblood of the industry. And we made so many changes so quickly that like it was hard to keep up. So people are like, what's going on up there? And just those all start with just conversations with friends, old friends, new colleagues, and kind of educate them on where we're at. And it's the baseline of K2 and all the great brands that are underneath Elevate is specialty retail. And yeah, coming back from that, it's a lot of talking, but it's all good stuff because it's skiing, it's snowboarding, having a good time.
So when you say specialty retail, there's a lot of brands that sell online and compete with their retailers. And it's gotten to the point where I don't know if K2's ever done it, but I read about people violating MAP, and this isn't a podcast about any of that stuff. So we don't really need to talk about it
Business.
much. Yeah, I don't want to talk too much about the business, but how do you support your retailers? Like, what does K2 do to support specialty? Because you also sell against them.
I mean, it starts with communication and relationships, that's for sure, and rehashing those relationships, having a great rep force that knows them and working with them. But then also, it's 2026, we have technology there too. And in my tenure as the marketing director of North America, it was my first time not being on the brand side of things. And so, like, when you're asking me all about athletes and stuff, I didn't make any of those calls. I'm just a fan of those things. There's global brand directors and everything. But I was able to kind of hunker down and understand what are those technologies, what are those connections that need to be reconnected or re-happen. And what I've came to is, this will sound like a pitch for locally.com, but locally is...
I'm going to cut all this part out.
Okay,
anyway.
what the hell? It's super cool. I think it's really cool.
All right. Well, we've been going for a while.
It's my TED Talk.
Yeah, we've been going for a while. You've graduated at K2 to a bunch of different positions in your 2 years there, or 3 years there now, because I think it's only been like 3 years, but now you're the global marketing director of K2 and Line.
Yes.
And so is that a step backwards? Not a step backwards. When you had 15 brands reporting to you, does it feel like a much more manageable thing right now to just be in charge of these 2 brands, even though there may be more decisions, but they're all focused in 2 brands, so you're not so spread out?
Yeah, it's we made some good organizational changes to set the baseline there as more of a category based. And knowing the 2 brands, yeah, there's some overlap in product and vibes and stuff, but like they are 2 very different brands. And you know, K2 has been around since 1962. There's a lot of heart in how people have relationships with it throughout that entire time. And with Line, it's the original freestyle brand. I mean, kind of was on the forefront, no pun intended, of twin tip skis. And starting from a completely different place that wasn't like race in the mid 90s of Jason Leventhal saying, I want to do cool snowboard tricks on skis. Started with ski boards, made bigger skis. I won't go into that even more because there's a lot of fun stories on the internet about his story and about how Line has come in. Line's now 30 years old. I mean, 2025, 30 years of Line skis. That's another thing that makes me feel old, but it is really cool to be like a few weeks ago, I was at the base of the women's slopestyle finals, the Olympics, and it was one of the most amazing competitions I'd ever seen. All the gals crushed it. And you got Tom Walsh coming down, who's announcing it for NBC, and then the next day, the men's was going, and you got riders on his skis, Connor Ralph and Kim Goopser, on his skis, he's announcing it. And I'm like standing there and being like, I'm at the base of the Olympics right now. You know, 30 years ago, I was hiding a shovel in the woods at Mount Southington to build jumps with my friend to like do things like Johnny Mosley and grab my ski. So that was quite the moment of being like, oh, this is real stuff. This is cool.
And you mentioned being over there and all that real stuff. But what's even cooler is you were over in Europe for what, 3 weeks?
No, it was 10 days.
10 days. Oh, it seemed like it was 3 weeks, I guess, in your posts and stuff. So you're 10 days there. How much money do you think you spend out of pocket when you're gone for 10 days?
I spent a bunch out of pocket now because I always see cool things I want to bring back to America. You know, some Genepi des Alpes from the Haute-Savoie region, some Augustiner beer from Munich.
So now you're at a point where you can buy treats and stuff, but you don't have to pay for meals or anything. It's like you go to the best places. You're usually staying right in the middle of where you're supposed to be. I mean, you're the dude at the brand, and your job is like, you are the most important guy traveling for K2 that's going into mountain towns, that's actually skiing.
I mean, they're all very important.
Who else travels like you to go to events like that?
Well, that was my one trip. And it just so happened the Olympics were going on at the same time. I needed to get some FaceTime with our European marketing manager, who's amazing. And with all these changes, it's a new group. So doing health checks on things, getting to meet athletes that I'd be working with I hadn't met before, like Manon and a lot of other folks in France. Yeah, so it was a work trip there, and yeah, it's difficult to explain it to people outside of the industry that it looks all flashy and cool from the outside, but it's still work. You're still on the clock, on trying to get as much information as possible of every different market. A lot of people think Europe's one big country. It's all different countries and different vibes and different styles. I mean,
eating and drinking and having conversations is getting that culture in those places. So it's all part of it. So, I mean, I get it. I'm just wondering, it's because it's a dream life. It's like your little 13-year-old self, that shovel. If I were to tell him that, hey, you're going to go to the Olympics and everything's going to be paid for and it's going to be an all expenses paid trip and you're going to be ski in, ski out, you'd be like, no way. And that's going to be my job and they're going to pay me to do that. But that is your life, right?
In certain times. I mean, it's a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of late nights in the office, that's for sure. And there's a lot more of that than the highlights. But yeah, those highlights are great. And we sell products and we are always looking to make our company better. So you got to go out there and be with the people and see what's going on and get the vibe. So it was definitely a gratifying trip in seeing beautiful Europe in every different way. But it's also definitely work.
All right, I've got one more business-related question, and then we're going to get to the last segment of the podcast. I should have asked this a long time ago, so it's going to be totally out of order, but I still want to ask it anyway, because I remember you and I had lunch a while back, a couple of years ago probably, and you were saying that the Bobs came to the office, and they were interviewing everyone for their jobs. What does that even mean, the Bobs?
No, it wasn't. They were interviewing for their jobs. It was, we had some consultants come in to look at the business and see where we can be more efficient and how we can change to be a better company. So,
but they came in and sat down with everyone, had conversations with them, took notes, and like everyone had to leave like, whoa, I just talked to them. That was weird.
Yeah,
and you seem to be the most nonchalant about it. I remember you saying like, I'm just being honest. If they don't want me, that's fine. And you got promoted out of it.
Well, you go back to that movie Office Space where it's like, if you are honest and I want the best for the people working there, for the company in general, and if they're there to help, what's the point of trying to protect your own ass in what you're doing and get into the heart of certain things that can be changed or expanded upon or things like that? You might as well be as honest as you possibly can and work with them really well. And so we're utilizing a lot of really good new changes
that came out of that time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I've never had to do that before, so it just seems weird. Like when they're like, "Hey, you have to meet with this guy, and he's going to interview you about your work life."
So what do you do here? Yeah. No, I like that. I've always been like, okay, I like when people ask me what I do because I don't talk very much. I mean, I do talk a lot when asked, but I don't really talk about my job very much. Or it's a lot of quiet, like I said, spreadsheets and planning and things of that nature, and seeing what we have to work with, and getting on the right timelines and things like that. So it is nice to talk about it.
All right. Well, that is the body of our podcast, but I have I have a final segment that I call Inappropriate Questions. This is where I get someone that to ask 3 questions, and they can be anything. The person I was able to get to ask these inappropriate questions is Stewart Beall. He's the general manager of K2 and Line. And I've got to cue these questions up so we can start them out. But he didn't really want to throw you under the bus. He didn't want to embarrass you too bad. He was very nice about it. And so we will go with question 1 from Stu right here.
Josh, you're always cleaning my office. What's up with that?
Well, we've, as of recently, to get our culture back a bit more, we've moved everybody into the same area. The product guys, the design guys, the customer service, and all that. So he's got a new big old office, which is great. And yeah, I have ADHD, as my thing. And if I see something that should be put together in a better way or changed, I will do it. So that's why I'm always cleaning his office.
All right.
And some people don't see it. And so it's like, I like to keep a tidy ship. And with a new office, we got to put a lot of stuff up like you got in this room here, man.
Well, some people say you don't mow another guy's lawn. Some people say you don't clean another guy's office. Either way, Josh, you'll probably do both because you have ADHD.
I love mowing lawns.
All right, there we go. He will do
I'll
both.
mow your lawn.
All right, we'll jump into question number 2.
One time we were in Mexico, Josh. We lost you for a night. We didn't know where you were. What happened?
That was a long time ago. It was actually during a layoff time at K2, too, which was interesting. So it was a little weird being down there, and there were some people that worked at K2, and, things were going down up there.
That got laid off on the trip?
No. In the office, which was terrible, and I was just like, what the hell? But, we were down there, and I believe we were in Sayulita, Nayarit area. Yeah, it was one of those trips that was like 1 or 2 days too long, where you're like, I had a great time, but like, let's get the hell out of here. There's a lot going on. And yeah, I kind of just went on a walkabout and ended up like eating al pastor tacos until way too late at night, and then ended up going to another resort there and partying with some new friends, and everybody stays up super late there. So it was just one of those where's Josh? And I'm a curious person. I like to go do things by myself. And yeah, it was just a really long night. And I ended up coming back at the crack of dawn of here I am. It was a big group. Suddenly me was gone. And I believe it was an Easter weekend too. So there was a big party in Sayulita. And this band that looked like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but they were from like Guadalajara, was playing. And there was a lot of cervezas involved and things like that. So it was, it was just one of my little walkabouts of what happened.
I think there's more to the story, but I don't think we're going to get it. I mean, you ate tacos for fucking 12 hours.
Yeah.
All right, we will jump into your final inappropriate question.
Josh, is it always your culture or your strategy to come over to somebody's new house and let your dog shit all over?
It's not my strategy. I just so happen to have a young puppy and then a 11-year-old Chihuahua with no teeth. And she's got a tiny little bladder, and Augie's new. And we were all up at Stu's house there in the mountains, and we went and hung out with some people down the way, and I thought they'd be okay the whole time, but it wasn't as bad as his wife makes it out to be or anything. It was just, Augie just likes to move around when she poops and stuff. So, like, it just makes a...
Smears?
No smears. Just, kind of like a star chart of her droppings, and then Alice does her thing, but I try to not have that happen sometimes, but... They're on a specific schedule, and when the schedule changes, sometimes it can happen. But he's got wood floors. It's all good.
When was the last time the schedule changed for you and you just couldn't hold it in?
Well, I'm not a canine.
No, I'm just it might not be the schedule. It just might be the situation. I was just trying to flow that into the question of like, when have you had the unexpected Powell movement, per se?
Man.
You would know, so.
Yeah. I don't know.
And that's Inappropriate Questions, and that's our podcast. And I feel like I was there at your first day at K2, and it's been very cool to see you grow from a smart kid with an intern work ethic to like an industry mover and shaker who's made a huge difference in the brand since like your first few days that you got into the office. And today you've gone from that smart, hardworking kid to like the mastermind marketer who now chooses to work smarter instead of harder, but you're still working a lot. And you're on the top of the pyramid when it comes to the company you're at. I mean, you started at the bottom, pretty much working as, you started with Jason Leventhal working at a hot dog stand, really, and now you're the cheesesteaks, whatever. Now you're the global marketing director of two of the most important brands in skiing, and I am proud to have been able to see that, proud to call you a friend, and I thank you for coming over, and I thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored to be in the place I am, and I want to be just a good steward of the brands and make sure that they thrive, and see what we can do. It's maybe we'll talk in 5 more years and see what happens. But yeah, I think we got a lot of the good pieces together, and obviously always more to do. But yeah, they're amazing brands that have very unique stories in the world of skiing, and I'm very excited.
So that was time with Josh Malczyk. And while I mentioned it in the intro, is it just me, or does Josh seem more corporate than he was on the podcast years ago? I guess that's what happens when you grow older and you get more responsibility. And while I'll always think of Josh as that scrappy line guy who did everything he could for the brand, that's not who he is anymore. While he used to be able to focus on things like the traveling circus, and the higher-ups had to worry about pleasing shareholders and the executive board, these days, Josh is the guy who's reporting to the higher-ups. And while his job is awesome, I'm sure that adds a bunch of layers of stress, because K2 is not public like it once was, and the VC guys can only be so patient for so long. I hope the best for Josh, the folks at K2, and the K2 brand in general, but it's been a tough go, especially for their ski business. And it will be interesting to see what happens in the years to come with the brand. That's the podcast. At this point, I want to thank you for listening. I want to ask you to review me wherever you listen, and please support my incredible sponsors who make this show happen. While they were once 6 strong, I'm riding this show out on the coattails of 2 of my best sponsors I've ever had over the past 10 years. They are Outdoor Research and Elan Skis. So please support those brands as they make this show happen, and have a great week, everyone.